In all of Psalm 90, Moses never prays for longevity of life. That's not the request. It's never mentioned.
Wow.
He just prays that every day is significantly lived for him. That's the wisdom he's seeking. And for many of us, that significance starts in the most important places. And as we know, and as we would encourage husbands, make sure you make a significant impact in your wife's life.
Let's go.
Wives, make sure you make a significant impact in your husband's life. Parents, make sure you make a significant impact in your kid's life. Adult kids, pick up the phone and call mom and dad to continue to make a significant impact in their life. Grab your closest friend and take them to lunch or coffee to continue to make a significant impact in their life. We will receive this in our head. We will try to figure out how to put it in our hands. And the closest and best place you can put this is in your home first.
What is going on, Post Sunday podcasters? I hope you guys are doing well here this morning. This is your host, Pastor Johnny Sierra, with you guys here at the Post Sunday podcast. Excited to be with you guys here. Season 4, episode 5. We are so thankful, and we couldn't be more excited, man, for what all that God is doing. It is amazing. We're excited to have you guys. If you guys are joining us, listen, we always have the opportunity to go live on IG and X. And so if I know lately we've just had an array of new followers coming into the IG space. Welcome to the Post Sunday podcast. We thank you so much for being a part of what's happening here. Listen, you might see it now, but every Monday around 10:30, we go live on IG. So it's kind of an opportunity to have a sneak peek, be able to enjoy the show before it goes on demand on YouTube. And we also are on X. So thank you for joining along with us. Today, we're excited to continue this season 4 of the podcast. We are diving into a year-long conversation of the Psalms. Last year, for season 3, we launched and we were just talking about the church, right? And building of the church, and man, what an amazing, the letters that built the church. We spent a lot of time in the letters that Paul wrote and all of that. So you can check all of that. It's available for you guys on social media, youtube.com/@PostSundayPodcast. You can check all of that out. Our full library of content is available for you guys to check that out. And also to Spotify and iTunes. If you guys are working out, hitting those New Year goals, you can join us, be able to train, and be able to also train your spirit and soul, and just continue the conversation with us here today. But I'm excited to have you guys with us. And just a couple things. We wanted to let you guys know that we got some discussion guides available for you on the Post Sunday podcast. And I'll pop that up for you guys here later on the YouTube. But you can join us. Every new episode, we got a new discussion guide that is available for you guys. You can check out our link tree or all of our social media platforms, our bio. Hit that link tree link, and then you'll be able to go right into that and download that for small group discussions and personal time. And so we're excited. I'm not here alone. I am here with my man, our host as well. He joins me, our lead pastor at Genesis Church Orlando, the legend himself, Pastor Tim Grantstaff. What's up, man?
I love that someone already said this podcast has to be fire to warm us up, right?
Yes.
And you know what's hilarious? I saw this morning, and it's true. Today, it was 27 degrees when we woke up in Orlando, Florida.
Goodness gracious.
It was 33 degrees in Alaska. Hell has frozen over, as we know it. If there's ever a real life scenario to that phrase that has been used throughout time.
Wow.
Hot, sunny, Florida. that can feel like the flames of hell during the summer.
Something.
Today is colder than Alaska. My goodness.
Something is happening. There's a shift.
We better bring the
happening,
fire.
Man. Oh my gosh. But man, what an exciting time. We're in episode 5 already. I can't believe it. But this season has been very, very it's been different. Obviously, we've changed up some things with the studio, and the vibes are a bit different, but the conversations too, it feels very much more intimate, personal, reflective, right? Like it makes you self-examine, it makes you look upon yourself. And we have been kind of all over the place. We're not going into chronological order in the Psalms through this year. Obviously, we have 52 weeks of the year, so we'll be kind of spending some time, like in Psalms 23. We'll be spending a couple weeks there. So there's a lot that we're going to play with when it comes to the Psalms. We've already been in Psalms 51, Psalms 1, Psalms 19, Psalms 103. And then this week, we're going to be spending some time here today in Psalms
90,
yes. We're kind of everywhere, but it's all hitting this theme, that we've been wanting, and the Lord's been guiding it. But man, Psalms 90, what timing, right? Like we just, if you guys aren't familiar, we get the opportunity to pastor Genesis Church Orlando in East Orlando. We just celebrated 16 years of amazing ministry, and just across all areas. But then you come back, and the following week, it's like, it's an uppercut to the gut of just realization that, we get this opportunity to do this. How are we maximizing it? What is the outlook that we're living by? Because this Psalms, interesting as it is, it's not a psalm that David wrote. It's actually a psalm that goes way past his time, but still carries relevant weight today. And Moses brings to the forefront an understanding about maximizing your days. What does it mean to make that count? He says it as numbering our days. Help us number our days. And that we're going to find that in Psalms 90, verse 12. But talk to us a little bit, Pastor, just kind of like that hard right hook, man. We came from a big celebration last week, and then in Psalms 103, and then we're coming into Psalms 90, and it's like, again, David and Psalms in general just has this up and down roller coaster, right? You're in a mountaintop one week, next week you're back down, like it. But that's the humanity of what the Psalms brings, is that we can relate with that because we are constantly faced with seasons of up and down, mountaintop and valley moments. And so
for a lot of what you read in the scriptures, you have the Gospels, which are an eyewitness account of Jesus. So you read them differently because these people have watched Jesus and they're telling us about him. For a lot of the Old Testament, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of history. It's a lot of events. And so what can happen is you begin to read the Bible, and for most people, you want to understand the scriptures, but it's a lot of information. And what happens is you store that information in your head.
Yeah. So
but your goal is to get it into your heart and ultimately out in your hands. Yeah. And the Psalms are different because some people would use the word they're poetic, and people may not be into poetry, but by saying that, what they're telling you is that the people that are writing these, there are these moments where they're literally putting their feelings into the paper. And that's the difference in the Psalms. Like, there are people who know nothing about Jesus, who don't have their faith and trust in Jesus, but they can read a psalm and be like, man, I feel that way. I relate that way.
Yeah, so true.
And so for us, these psalms right now, that's what it's doing. It's tapping into the things that we feel as just normal human beings. We may have the head knowledge, but we're trying to figure out what to do with it. So every time you read a psalm and it says, how long, oh God? Well, how many of us can relate to just that phrase. Like, how long, God, do I have to wait for this or see you move in this or to hear you answer this prayer? So it triggers something in you. It's no different than, probably the most famous Psalm, Psalm 23, and we'll be there later in this year. But when it says, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, well, with anybody that has lost a loved one, a family member, a close friend, whatever that looks like, when you hear that phrase, it resonates deep within you. I've walked through that valley, or you've been diagnosed with something that you may not get a cure for, and you feel like you're walking through that. It triggers in you. And that's the beauty of the Psalms. And so when you open up Psalm 90 and it tells us, teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. You step back and you go, okay, what do I need to know in my head today? What do I need to receive in my heart? Yeah. But ultimately, what's this going to do with my hands this week? How's this going to play out? And that is what season 4 is doing for us. We spent a year from Genesis to Revelation learning the story of God. We spent a year in the words of Jesus, season 2, learning the life of Jesus. We spent a year in the letters that built the church. What was the church? How did it begin? What was happening? And a lot of that has been information to learn and build a solid foundation in us. Yeah. Now we're tapping into the emotions. And we're tapping into the everyday life circumstances. And we're tapping into the realness of what's going on around us. And as you said, this psalm is a psalm of Moses. Yes. And if you look in your Bible, it'll say it's the beginning of a book 4, because the Psalms, even though there's 150 of them, they're collections. And so they have themes within their collections. And this psalm, most scholars don't refute it didn't come from Moses. But obviously, they're also not maybe thinking Moses wrote this down on paper as much as it's something he prayed, and then it got passed down from generation to generation. And that's really important when you come into this psalm, because now you have to go, I'm not thinking about King David right now. I have to take my mind and shift it back to the time of Moses. Yeah. And I have to think about where Moses was when he might have been praying this prayer or writing this in his time. And most scholars would say, if that's the case, this was between Egypt and the Promised Land. So you have a generation of people that have been told by God, you won't enter the Promised Land. Your days are numbered. Wow. You don't get to go to the land I want to give you, because you have moaned and you have groaned and because you have done these things. And so you have this moment in your life where you're going, okay, I have to listen to this and go, my days are numbered. I'm not living between Egypt and the Promised Land, but I'm living between this life and the promised life to come. And because of that, I have to think about then every day that God gives me, every day that God blesses me with, every day that I wake up, like, what does God want to do with that day? What does he want to do with that moment? And as we were talking, before we came on the podcast, and we were just praying before all these people joined us, we were praying that prayer. God, if today's going to count, if today matters, then make this moment significant. We don't know who's watching. We don't know who will watch. We don't know who will follow along. We don't know who this will be passed on to. But God established the work of this podcast today. And that is how Moses is trying to get the people then. Yeah. Yet the psalmist now, at this time, is bringing that psalm back into their everyday living. Yeah. And so it's kind of like this multi-generational psalm that we get to explore today.
That's so good, man. It's so good. Psalms really, it forces us to ask, like, how long do we actually have, and what are we going to do with it, right? I love that the Psalms 90, really, it's kind of a hybrid psalm. It really allows you, it gives you that hymn, that lament, that wisdom, kind of all bunched up together. But man, even when you say Psalms 90:12, help us number our days, right? Number them, right? What does that mean, to number your days, right? Excuse me, not seize it, but number it, right? What does that even mean? And so, man, what a reflection there it is to now have that. And he kickstart the Psalms with, Lord, you have been my dwelling place in all generations. Like, now that you have brought context with Moses and the Israelites, And if you're talking about them being in a in between the promised land and a desert place, here is Moses giving verbiage of God, of a dwelling place. They don't even have a situated, established place, and yet Moses is giving us verbiage as if they are, because God is always going to be the dwelling place wherever you are. And I love that, man. It's like, yet I don't have my home. Yet we're not at the place that you've promised us. It doesn't matter. You are our dwelling place. Wherever I am established, that's where I want you to be. And if you're there, you're my dwelling place for all generations.
Yeah, the difference in that understanding for us, you're here today. This podcast is to help disciple you, help you grow, help you learn. That word dwelling place can also mean refuge. And as you said, the reality of Moses is really going to bookend this psalm with the same language, and we'll look at that at the end. So don't forget that right up front. He's going to bookend it because he's going to begin, as you said, with God, you're our dwelling place. And what the nation of Israel has already missed is that the dwelling place with God is not just going to be in the promised land.
Yeah.
The dwelling place is in the fact that God has already established his presence among them.
That's right.
Right? So there's a pillar of fire by night, a cloud by day. There's the tabernacle that will be constructed. Like, God is dwelling in their midst. He is right there with them already. And they consistently still complain, wanting to get to another earthly place. So they've missed the big picture of God being their absolute refuge. In this wilderness, over each mountain, around every rock, God's my refuge. God's my dwelling place. I follow him, and he will guide and he will lead us. And so Moses establishes that first and foremost in his prayer. And I say prayer because for many of us, we don't establish our prayers that way. For many of us, we establish our prayers immediately with requests.
Yeah.
Hey, God, I hope you're listening today because I got some things that I need. What we don't realize is that we sound like the nation of Israel back in the wilderness. Right. Moses makes sure that before I pray and I put things before God that I need to request, which is not unbiblical, I need to make sure that I in humility, I put myself under the authority of who God is. And so when he says this word Lord, it's not just Yahweh God. It's Lord, like I surrender. I surrender under you right now. Before I come to you, this is the posture of my heart.
Yeah.
And I need you to know that you're my dwelling place, whether it's a tabernacle, whether it's a pillar of fire in the night that's guiding us, or one day if you would have allowed us into the promised land. My earthly space does not dictate where the dwelling place of God actually is, right? And they're seeing it as a space they have to get to instead of the reality that God is right there with them. And then he speaks of what God established. And this is what's key to the end of this psalm that we'll look at here in a little bit, is that he speaks of God creator. You brought forth the mountains before anything else had ever been formed in all the earth. You were there from everlasting to everlasting. Wow. And it is the position of our heart we should be taking when we come before God. Yeah. I have said to people in conversations before that in many Jewish synagogues, there's a sign above the doorway when you enter in, or when you come into the place, and it has the Hebrew phrase, know before whom you stand. Like, if you're going to come into this space and we're going to open up the word of God and we're going to worship Almighty God, know before whom you stand. And that checks your heart right away. I can't come to God just with all my anger, all my bitterness, and all my demands. I got to first come to God and kneel and surrender and go, you're God, creator of it all. You were there long before me. You will be there far after I am. And so whatever I'm about to pray, I'm still going to trust you and your work in all of it.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. That is super good. If God is not your dwelling place, numbering your days will only make you anxious. But if he is, it'll make you wise. Right?
Yep.
And so for the unbeliever and the person that is focused on maximizing their days on this earth and establishing their kingdom in this earth, they're anxious. They're anxious. They're doing everything to prolong the inevitable, right? Because in their minds, it's rooted by how much I can succeed in this world. But if my dwelling place is the Lord's, it's making me wise. And I understand that every day is a gift. Every day is an opportunity. Whether I'm here or not, I get the opportunity to lead my life under his direction, under his wing, right? It's a whole complete different mindset. It's a completely different mindset than what culture is teaching us today. That you gotta grind and you gotta hustle and you gotta work your way to establish your kingdom and your ways and you gotta make sure that you are established and you're successful and you are recognized, and all of that leads to this anxiety, right? Because you are trying to establish a dwelling place in your own success, in your own strength, in your own ability. And as Jesus says, right, wise is the individual that can establish the foundation on solid ground, not on sandy ground that can be taken by the winds and the waves. And so, man, what a way to help us understand that. And my question for the audience here today, if you're listening, is if someone looked at your habits or your anxieties and hopes this week, would they conclude that God is your dwelling place or that you're trying to build one without him? What would they come to the assumption to? What would be their conclusion in your life if they were a fly on the wall looking at your life? Is God the dwelling place in your life, the firm foundation in your life before anything else gets going?
The book of Numbers, God says that Moses is the most humble man to live. And verse 3 of this psalm, of this prayer, really shows that, because first of all, remember, Moses is the author of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible.
Yeah.
He's the one that gets to record Genesis for us. He's the one that gets to write down that God took the dust of the earth and formed it into the shape of man and breathed the breath of life into it. And so he comes back, and in his humility, as he establishes, "You are Lord, I surrender to you. You are creator of it all. You were there before me." Then he says in verse 3, "You return man to dust." Like, I'm not going to forget the fact that you told me that when you created man, you took a bunch of dirt out of the ground and you breathed into it the breath of life. And one day it returns back to that dust.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you see the humility in the heart of someone who's asking to gain a heart of wisdom. So this is what we're leaning into today. Because if we really want to grow in our faith, if we really want to be different types of Christians, followers of Jesus, if we look at someone like Moses and we go, man, I could never be like him. He's one of the heroes of the faith. He's one of the ones standing on the mountain when Jesus goes to the Mount Transfiguration. Like, this is Moses that everyone remembers and talks about, the humblest man to live. No, look at his qualities. Look at his approach. Look at how he begins his prayers. And then look at the fact that Moses probably gets a pass to ask God anything he wants, more than most of us, because of the way he lived his life. But the thing he's asking for is a heart of wisdom.
Wow.
And he begins it by talking about how fragile life is, how quick life comes and goes, and how our time frame of living in life are nowhere compared to God's. So he'll say, for 1,000 years in your sight, but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. He's just speaking to, obviously people will say 1,000 years is like one day, and one day is like 1,000 years to God. And most people only bring that up when they're trying to prophetically proclaim when Christ will return and how many thousands of years there have been versus one day and all this stuff and add it all up. But Moses isn't doing that.
Yeah.
Moses is, once again, still humbly, as we listened to Brian last week, you would think like face in the ground on the concrete before God. God, you could return me to dust. God, I'm going to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, but 1,000 years is like one day to you.
Wow.
Like you're beyond me.
Yeah.
You're above me. Your reasoning and your time doesn't match what we have here in our realm versus in your realm. And so he's really just giving us this picture to remind ourselves of where we belong and the posture we should be taking before God before we even ask God how we should move or where we should go.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I was picking up a few notes. There's a couple scholars and theologians that I love to listen to and write some stuff about, but some commentators note that for God, even 1,000 years is like a single night watch. So our anxiety about God being slow is a symptom of forgetting how different his time scale is, you know? And I thought that was interesting because that's kind of seems to be a big problem for people. You know, either God's has yet to respond, or not responded at all, or just seems to be deaf and not listening. But his timing is so different than ours. And you got to understand too, here is Moses watching an entire generation die in the wilderness, right? And so he literally lived with a constant reminder that life was short. It was in front of him constantly. Death constantly. He would watch an entire generation die before they get to the promised land, right? When you hear that, it sounds sad.
Yeah.
It sounds like, for someone that is a shepherd, that cares for his sheep, that interceded for them, that God's wrath would not fall upon them. Here he has to slowly watch them become dust, right? And man, that's tough. But there's an understanding of that. There's kind of a Genesis language to that. As God brought us from the dust, as you said, we will return from it, right? There's this understanding that this is a part of life. Mm-hmm. And when he is your dwelling place, you're not, that anxiety doesn't dwell within you because you know that this life is temporary and there is way more to come. Right? It doesn't bring anxiety up to us that my days are numbered because I know that for eternity, I will be with him. I sat with my kids. We've been doing devotionals every night. Kudos to my kids, man. We've been consistent. That's been a goal of ours, 2026. But I remember sitting with them, and the theme has been God the Creator for January. And I remember we sat, and there was one passage that we read, and one of my kids was like, man, we're going to be with God for eternity? Like, what does that look like? Like, are we just going to be like, what are we going to be doing? Like, and we just started saying eternity repeatedly over and over. And it's like, that's a long time. Like, we can't even fathom. And for them, their minds are not at the place to understand something like that. But we know what's next. And that's the beauty of all this.
We can't fathom that, let alone your kids.
Yeah, so true.
No one's sitting here.
No one.
So we speak of it because we're learning it.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll never understand it until we pass from this life into the life to come. Yeah. And I grew up under a pastor that would say often, man is invincible until God is done with him. Right? And that's true. Because you look at Moses, and as you said, Moses and a generation of Israel, because God told the nation of Israel, this generation will not see the promised land.
Correct.
But we know that the next generation did enter into the promised land. So in essence, they had a death sentence on them.
It's crazy.
They knew that the journey will soon end at the border of the promised land. And before we get there, or before that moment takes place, this generation won't exist. You know, it is weird to think that Moses goes up on a mountain and gets to look off into the promised land that he's never going to actually walk into. And many believe he died on that mountain and so forth. But you take that and you go, well, if that's the case, if I think about the fact that man is invincible till God is done with him, then it is the wise reality that you are called to see that your days are numbered. You are on this earth for a certain amount of time for a purpose. And you can choose to walk in that purpose, or you can choose to reject that purpose.
Yeah.
That's the life that God has given every human being in their free will.
Yeah.
I can choose you this day whom you will serve, to make much of myself or to make much of God.
That's right.
I can choose to live life the way God intended, or I can choose to live my life and time here on earth the way I intend.
That's true.
And if my days are marked and set, and God knows what those look like and what those are, then in wisdom, I want to maximize them for the glory of God.
That's right.
So that when I walk from this life into the next, what I've done in this life had significance. Yeah. Because that's what we really all want. Everyone will say, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Yeah, you know, what's the meaning of life? That's right. At the end of the day, the real question we're asking is, will my life be significant? Will it have a ripple effect? Will people, when I'm not here, still remember who I am?
That's good, man.
And depending on how you choose to grab the baton and play your part in this race for the kingdom of God, will depend on the significance your life has in the life of other human beings when you are no longer here.
Preach it, bro. Every breath is borrowed, man. Every breath is borrowed. I read this quote. It said, "You and I are not in control of the length of our lives, but we are responsible for what and for whom we live them." We're not in control of the length of our lives, but we are responsible for what and for whom we live them. And so remember that. Remember that, right? When you think you have control, sit back and really truly think about that. You know, again, I'll bring a lot of stories of my kids, but we sat again together and I just told them, I said, think about the things you don't even have control of in your body that function without you having to even do, like, your awareness of it is not even like there. Like, do you know the number of hairs in your head? And they started touching their hair, started trying to count, you know, and like just simple things like that. Your body, my son's studying organisms and cells, and it's like his understanding of God the Creator is widening through that realm. My daughter's understanding of God the Creator is opening up through the realm of nature and seeing God. We watched a little bit of Pole to Pole from Will Smith from National Geographic.
Yep.
My man went to the South Pole, touched the very bottom of the earth. And we're sitting there, and we just started this devotional for this month of God being the Creator, and we're sitting there, and we're just like, and my daughters are captivated by that because here is their way of seeing God, right? And his hand over the grand scheme of things, but yet here's my son seeing God in the very intricate pieces of our life, right? God is both grand, but he's also intimate. And that is the beauty of the God that we serve. And so where are you currently living as if you had unlimited time? Where are you living? How are you living your life? Examine yourself and say, where is it that I think I have unlimited time and capability of doing, of just taking my time on? Someone here today may be listening and saying, I've been on the fence about my salvation, about Jesus and God and just eternal life and salvation Are you thinking you have unlimited time that you can just kind of set it and forget it, move on, put no time into it? Remember that you're on borrowed time. Every breath is borrowed. And so today, don't waste a moment. Let today matter. Let today count for your life.
Yeah, I mean, we know time is undefeated.
Yeah.
We've talked about that. We discussed that even in our services on Sunday. And the reality is most people hear that and they think they're invincible of that.
That's so true.
And Moses, at the beginning of this whole psalm, is flipping the script. Most people think they're permanent, that nothing can penetrate them, that nothing's going to harm them, that they're just going to live this long life and it's always going to happen to someone else. And Moses is taking a humble response that any of us could be returned to the dust today. And that's heavy. That's why you say, like, this psalm today is like a left turn from last week, celebrating 16 years and the benefits of God. But that's what the Psalms do. They walk with us through all areas of life. And so they celebrate with us in the highs, and yet they walk with us in the lows. And Moses is saying to get a heart of wisdom. That's what everyone that is with us on this podcast, I would assume or hope that is a desire of yours, or you wouldn't give time to this podcast. Yeah. You wouldn't check in. Yeah. Some of you wouldn't be Diamond fans, as we said, that have been with us for 3 seasons. Yeah. Because you're wanting wisdom, but wisdom in biblical understanding, in Hebraic thinking from a Hebrew people, was not knowledge in your head. So grasp this today. Wisdom wasn't just help me understand the things I can't understand about the Bible. Wisdom wasn't just let me collect as much information as I can so I can answer as many questions as possible. Wisdom in Hebraic thinking, because Hebraic thinking was always what I learn, how do I walk it out?
That's good.
It goes hand in hand. It's never separated. So their understanding of wisdom was, better said, skillful living. What I learn and discover must immediately begin to play out in my life. There can't be a gap. That would be foolishness. Foolishness would be I learned truth and I left it in my head. I didn't walk it out. Guess what many of us do? We walk as foolish people. Wow. We sit in services. We listen to podcasts. We open the Bible. We see exactly what God tells us. We see the truth. We leave it in our heads. We never let it change our hearts. Therefore, it doesn't walk out in our hands. And what we say is, I've got time. I'm learning these things, but I've got time. I'm hearing these things, but I enjoy my relationship more that's ungodly. I know these things, but you know what? I rely on a substance more than I do the power of God. I care more about my ungodly friendship circle than I do about living holy and righteous for God. We play these games with all that God gives us. And wisdom is skillful living.
That's right.
What I am learning and unpacking, I am now going to walk this right out in my life. That means for many of us, real decisions have to be made now, because if each day matters and each day counts, you don't sit there and go, well, give me days to think and decide this. That's right. No, today matters. Yeah. Jesus said himself, don't worry about tomorrow, for today has enough worries of itself. So let's figure out today. Did you know that you said anxiety earlier. Most of what we get anxious about, most of our worries, most of our stress that we play in our head that leads us to anxiety, that leads us to worry, that leads us to stress. Did you know all those things we think about, statistically, somewhere between 8 and 15% of that ever becomes reality?
Wow.
So anywhere from 85 to 92% of what we worry, stress, and fill ourselves with anxiety over never even plays out. It's all internal. And if we would stop giving all that time and attention to these assumptions and these internal things inside of us, and we would shift them over to the eternal things of God, and instead of making our anxieties and our worries, our stress, our dwelling place, and make God our dwelling place, we would gain that heart of wisdom. It wouldn't stay in our head. It would be in our hands right now.
Let's go, man. Don't give anxiety a seat.
Yes.
Don't give anxiety a seat at your table. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Anxiety is just, it's you saying, God, I'm taking the steering wheel here. Yeah. I don't think you can do this for me anymore.
We were in Germany, and one of the leadership conferences that we were doing, just a week and a half ago, and one of the sessions we did was on just creating a culture of celebration. How as leaders, how to celebrate the good things of God, because there's so many broken things that you're dealing with all the time. And someone asked through an interpreter, they said, what do you do when someone is just always critical, is always negative, is always seeing the glass half full? And you know what I told him? I said, we don't give it breath. We don't give it breath. We definitely don't give it breath in big spaces. We'll tell that person, let's have a private conversation. But we don't give it breath. You know why? Because the way they're seeing it is not the way we're all seeing it.
That's right.
And the way they're choosing to approach it is not the way we're choosing to approach it. And so we're taking the things that would cause anxiety and stress and worry, and if they're real, we'll deal with them. But for the most part, more than not, they aren't. And so we're not going to give it life. We're not going to give it breath. We're not going to let it fester in us. Yeah. My wife will say, does that not bother you? And I'll say, no. Well, how? I don't give it attention and time. There's no reason to. Every day matters. Everything we're doing to move forward matters. I'm not going to let the negativity or the stress and worry, anxiety of someone else pull us backwards. Right. I struggle with it enough on my own. So do you. We all do as human beings. But if we give it time where it becomes our dwelling place, then it takes up the space that God deserves to get us through it.
Yeah. And so, I think Moses hints on this a little bit, because in verse 7, he goes on to say, for we are brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. Again, earlier we said that Psalms 90 is a bit of a hybrid psalm, but this piece is like a lament piece towards in the Psalms, because Moses is not just upset that life is hard. He understands that life is hard precisely because of humanity, because of us. We are making life hard, including Israel, lives under the shadow of sin and judgment. So I saw this from Tim Keller, and he said, God's wrath is not the expression of his holy love. A God who is the expression of his holy love. A God who never burns against evil would not truly love the people evil destroys. Right? If I love my kids, part of loving them is correcting them. Part of loving them is guiding them. Part of loving them is instructing them. Part of loving them is just not all kisses and hugs. It is correction. It is hard conversations. It is, speaking truthfully, honestly, in a way that will edify and build their lives, right? Because I'm responsible for them. So how much more would a God that burns in love for us, right, not hold us accountable as well? And so here is Moses viewing this and saying, man, this is hard, but it's not because God's making it hard. This is hard because we're making it hard. We're making it hard upon ourselves. That anxiety, we're attaching ourselves to it. We're clinging on like a leech. And God is offering constantly new opportunities, new doorways for us to be free, and we're not taking it.
Yeah, you would hear someone that's going to listen to this and go, yeah, but we're talking about death. I'm afraid of death. That brings a lot of anxiety my way. And I would agree with you. You know why? Because death is unnatural to us.
That's so true. You
know why? It wasn't the way God intended things to be.
Yeah.
In the garden, it wasn't supposed to be that way. But because of sin, death now exists. It is the consequence of sin. But it is unnatural to the DNA of how he created human beings to exist.
Yeah.
Moses then says, so for all our days pass away, we bring our years to an end like a sigh. And then he says, the years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength 80, and yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. He's like, look, some get the luxury of living to be 70, 80, and beyond. Some don't. either way, how we live them matters, right? Whether you get 30 years, 50 years, 80 years, your days are numbered. So wisdom is counting all of them because they all matter. I was listening to a doctor this past week, Dr. Ataya, I forget how you say his last name. He did a 60 Minutes report. He's the new kind of like longevity of life guru. And so you may see him on your social media feeds and all that stuff. But his perspective on why longevity and the way that he's approaching it was eye-opening, and it was inspiring, because if I'm going to count my days, then that means I want every day to be significant. And that means that I want to make sure they're significant in the right places first and foremost. And so the lady on 60 Minutes, she interviews him and she asks him about why he's so, caught on longevity of life and these types of things. And really, let's be honest, everyone wants to live as long as they can. So we all care about longevity of life. Let's be real. Not everyone does what they need to do to be prepared for longevity of life, regardless, right? There's being healthy, diet, all these things, they do matter. But he said, I want to live as long as I can for this reason. And I was just like, that's it. Because I want to have meaningful relationships with my grandchildren. And I was like, oh, okay, let's go. I want to hear more of this. So he said, so what I've done is I teach people to map their life out later in life. 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70, 80. If you get to 70 and 80, like Moses is saying here. And he said, and start to ask yourself, at 50, will my children be married? Will I have a son-in-law or daughter-in-law? At 60, would I possibly have my first grandchild, or maybe 2 or 3? At 70, maybe I have 6 or 7. At 80, I might even get a great-grandchild. So those final 30 years, most people kind of take in stride. I'm old. Let me just settle down. Let me cash in for my Social Security. Possibly I can retire, and let me just live out my life. And he said, no, I'm taking it differently. Every decade means I gain something in my life and in my home. A son or daughter-in-law, excuse me, a grandchild, maybe eventually a great-grandchild.
Wow.
And then he said this, he said, but science has shown that for the average person that gets a long life, 75 is the cliff. At 75, there's a drastic decline in the human body.
Wow. He
said, so my goal is to figure out and to help people go, how do I get 10 to 15 years more? How do I get to 90? Now, some people aren't wired that way.
Yeah.
I get that. That speaks to my wiring. I think about, okay, God, I don't know when my last breath will be, but if you leave me here, my goal is to prepare myself to get to that 80 or 90. So what I eat, my health, the way I approach each day, the things I give my mind, because we know stress and worry take years off of your life, all of these things, they all actually do matter. I want to have meaningful relationships with my grandchildren.
Wow.
For as long as I possibly can. I don't want to just say I raised up some great godly children and then I passed on from this life. Maybe that's when my time ends. But if it doesn't, what is it like to have meaningful relationships with my grandchildren? And if I don't get there, this question is still the same. If I count my days, if I number my days in wisdom, if I make them significant, then my grandchildren will know about me, because I will have done such significant things in the lives of other people for the kingdom of God, in my home, in my children, that they continue to speak, maybe live out, pass on the significant things that I was a part of with them. That is the wisdom that Moses is calling upon, that we're all leaning into in this moment, that life is bigger than us. This doctor on 60 Minutes is not thinking about himself. He's thinking about a third generation of his family that doesn't exist yet, that he wants to pour into.
That's crazy. He's not a Christian that I know of, a believer. That's how every believer should be thinking.
That's how they should be living. And ultimately, here's the catch, because this will shift us into the next section of this psalm. This is what Moses is praying for.
Yeah.
This generation's going to pass. So if we number the days we have, make them significant for the generation that's going into the promised land to take with them.
That's right.
It's all right there.
Yeah, yeah. And it's almost like a prayer, he's saying. So teach us to number our days, right? Teach me. Teach us. Almost like he's teaching that next generation. Show us how to number our days, because you see all around you death. How are you making an impact? How are you growing? How are you maximizing your time? God could allow you to be the generation that'll be in the promised land. Are you ready for that? Yeah. Will you maximize that opportunity? And so, man, we said it yesterday. You repeated it a lot, but we have to be taught. This is a prayer. We have to be taught this by God. Teach us how to number our days. That's why, again, it's not a life hack. This is not something you just look at and say, oh, okay, Psalms 90:12. Now help me number my days, and all of a sudden it just voila. No, this is a prayer of learning how to, of opening my eyes to see what adjustments I can make that will help me, as you said, with that individual, that will help me be aware of areas that I can broaden and allow God to help me widen these moments out and make them grander than what I ever expected. But it's a prayer that Moses is saying this, and I love that, man.
As you said, death was all around them, and death is all around us.
Yeah.
We just close our eyes to it. We are living in a Western culture that has taught us to turn the channel when you don't like bad news.
True. Yeah.
We pick and choose how we want to mourn, or if we want to mourn the loss of someone. Other cultures don't do that. They embrace it. They take it head on because it's the realness of life. And sadly, for many of us, we don't wake up until death knocks right on the door closest to us.
Or a tragedy happens.
And we've had it happen, right? I've buried my uncle and my Nana this year. I have an uncle that's in the final weeks of his life. This morning, my wife and I woke up, really good friends of ours, family we knew in Georgia that was at the start of the church there that we came from. This morning, there is a husband who is no longer here, a dad who's no longer here, to a family we know really well. He passed away on Friday evening.
Wow.
We, on Sunday, specifically talked about a gentleman in our church,
That's right,
Tim Allen, who took his final breath on Saturday evening. And he was living in the house of some other people in our church so that he wouldn't die alone, which is just an incredible story in of itself that we don't have much time to unpack here. But walk into the bedroom, and here he is. I had just been with him on Thursday, sitting bedside, having a conversation with him. And now you look at a hollow shell of a human frame, because you know his soul has gone to be with Jesus. And while you're sad that he's no longer here to have a conversation with, there's this peace because he had learned to number his days well. He is one of the very few human beings I have ever met that decided, listen, with my cancer, I do not want the doctors to tell me when the end is coming. So throughout his time, his battle with cancer, he never allowed the doctors and nurses to tell them, hey, you've got a year or less left. Hey, you've got 6 months or less left. You've got 2 months left. He just said, I want to take each day as a gift from God and live it to its fullest.
That's good, man.
He spent the last few months of his life doing what we should do daily. Every day, doing nothing but reading God's word, watching videos about God and the Bible and heaven on YouTube, journaling nonstop, writing his prayers out, telling me, listen, I'm more closer to God right now than I've ever been in my life, to the point where I cannot wait to go be with him.
Wow.
I'm not sad. I'm not afraid. I can't wait to go be with him because of how close I've gotten to him in his darkest, hardest moment. And last week he said, come visit me. They're putting me in a bed. And he said, I don't want to be in a permanent bed. I don't want to get to that point. So I'm asking God, bring me home. Bring me home. Don't give me days in a bed I don't want to be in. Let me come stand before you. And God heard that prayer. And God honored that prayer. But this man was counting every day. I saw a video just yesterday of the men's group that would go in the house. He would muster enough strength to come out and sit on the couch. And men in the men's group would sit around him and just listen to him talk about how you should approach life, how you should number your days, the things that matter the most, what is significant, what really matters, from a man that's literally getting ready to take his final breath. And I would say that Tim Allen gained a heart of wisdom in his darkest moments because he leaned into what Psalm 90 is really telling us.
Wow. Man, I love what he said. You know, he one of the final things that he told you in the conversation.
Yeah, I asked him, I said Thursday, I didn't know he wouldn't be here. Let me clarify that, because there are some people from our church that are on this podcast. We didn't choose Psalm 90 because a guy passed away. I didn't speak about him just because he passed away. I would have, but I had sat with him on Thursday because I texted him and I said, bro, I'm reading Psalm 90. I'm getting ready to preach this. We're getting ready to do a podcast about this. I can't read this without thinking about you, because it's so convicting and inspiring the way you have counted your days. So I sat with him and I said, hey, if I was just to say, like, this is what Tim left me with. This is what Tim wanted everyone to hear. Like all that you've been through, all that you've wrapped your head around, and knowing the end, what would you say? And he said, it's not going to be profound. He said, that's what everybody thinks it's supposed to be. This really deep thought. He said, don't make it so hard. Stop making your life with God so difficult. Keep it simple. Wow. Stay in the Word. Bend your knee in prayer. Make every day matter. Like, okay, it's not a life hack, but there's 3 simple steps right there. Stay in the Word, bend your knee in prayer, and make every day count. It's not that hard. We make it difficult. We wake up today and go, I'm too busy to get in God's word. True, bro. We come to God and we demand things instead of take the posture that Moses has before God, that you are God, I surrender to you, you created it all, you could turn me to dust today. And then we want it all in our head because that's what we think wisdom is, instead of skillful living. How do I walk this out right now? How do I make today impactful for someone? How do I live it for the kingdom of God, not for myself? How do I expand God's kingdom, not build my castle? How do I make much of God, not much of myself? These are the constant questions we ask ourselves. And here's the reality. Like, God's telling me this weekend, you will not preach this sermon, you will live in it. So I get to Saturday, and my wife has to go to a birthday party with my daughter and her best friend. It's going to be an all-day event. And so I said, like, is there anything I'm supposed to do? And she says, no. So I said, so I'm going to have a free Saturday evening for the first time in like 5 months. And I was like, I don't even know if I'll know what to do. So I got some things done. Obviously, I was going over my sermon for Sunday, and then I got everything set. And then I sat down and I was like, okay, now I'm just going to get some like veg time. I just rest. There's nothing going on. Clear my mind. I haven't had this on a Saturday night for a long time going into Sunday. Within 30 minutes, my phone dings, and it's Harry. Hey, Tim just passed away. You need me there? Yeah, it'd be good. I'm on my way. And so then I'm there with them and some other men and their wives from our church for almost 4 hours. Sunday comes, preach the sermon. We take some people out to lunch, get home. All right, I didn't get to rest last night. I'm going to rest tonight. I was in a chair for a little over an hour or two, whatever. My wife comes home. She had something she had to do. Hey, the guard shack, the guy at the guard shack, it flooded. He's up there with a broom trying to sweep it all out. Can you go help him? So I go up with a broom. No, it's flooded like 3.5, 4 inches. The sink pipe burst. Welcome to cold Florida. We're not used to this stuff. Poor young man, he's got a broom and it ain't coming out. So I have to come back to the house, get my shop vac, go up, and now I'm in there. I'm in there for over an hour. I'm tired. It's been a long Sunday. I'm going through the loss of someone that died, and I'm vacuuming up all the water inside, and I'm listening to this psalm, God established the work of my hands. God established the work of my hands. Because my flesh is going, I deserve rest right now. God's going, no, make every day count and make it significant. So this guy says, man, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I don't even know why you came and helped me. And I said, for what it's worth, not to make it weird, I'm a pastor. And when people are in trouble, we should be the first people to step in. He says, where's your church? I said, Avalon Park. He says, that's where I live. I said, you know, right up at the top of it near Wawa? He goes, yeah. I go, we're right up there, Genesis Church. He goes, I'm going to look it up. Thank you. I don't know what God's going to do with that. But I know for a moment while I was vacuuming up 4, inches of water, it took me 12 shop vacs full of water to dump out of this guard shack. It was flooded so bad. My flesh is going, I deserve rest. God's going, let me establish the work of your hands. Let me establish the work of your hands. And in the moment I'm going, man, I don't know if I want to live this out. I just want to go get in bed. But no, every day matters. Every interaction matters. Every conversation matters. And God is going, no, live this out. Don't keep it in your head. Make sure it plays out in your hands.
Wow. Let's go, man.
And that's the essence, right?
Yes,
so to bookend this, right? To bookend this, Moses prays this prayer. God, you established the earth. You made it firm and lasting. You brought the mountains out of the water. I mean, he's using this grand poetic language. And he comes back and in verse 17, and he says, let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. So God, in essence, he's saying, and I don't want to miss this as I was studying it. I wrote this down today. Let me make sure that I get there. He's calling back to a God who established creation. And he's saying, I want you to establish that same work in my life. I want the life that I live to be so significant that you establish it in such a way that it still exists when I'm not here. I mean, there's power in that, right? There's legacy in that. There's multi-generational learning and understanding in that. You meet someone, they say, my grandfather taught me how to do this, or my dad used to show me how to do this, just skills and trades and things in life, or my mom passed this recipe down, or my grandmother did. We have these moments, but Moses is praying, establish the work of our hands. In our hands, as a nation, Israel, everything in the scriptures, I want to remind people, was always plural. We try to make faith so individual that we forget the reality of what we're to be doing together with other people. So we will tell people all the time, all together we can do together what none of us can do alone. Yeah. We're not to serve alone, we're to serve together. We're not to go on mission alone, we're to go on mission together. Individualism says, let me just create my own thing. Be careful you're not creating your own castle. We're all trying to help build the kingdom. Let's do this together. So it was plural. God established our work. So you take that and go, God, establish our work as Genesis Church here in Orlando, collectively as a congregation, but establish our work as many churches in the city, and establish our work as churches in Orlando, but also in Brazil and Scotland and Germany. Like, this is about you and your kingdom. It's not just about me and what I do. Establish our work and make it so significant that it lasts. It has a long-lasting ripple effect. We, in essence, are getting to play our part in helping build Genesis Church. Christ builds his church, but he's using us to play our parts. We're failures if Genesis Church doesn't exist after us. Right?
Right.
It should be long-lasting. It should reach generations upon generations. Not for our glory or for our fame, but because it was deeply rooted in the people and in generations. And so in essence, when Moses is saying this, he's saying first and foremost, you can't establish anything your favor's not on. So God, show your favor to us first. Well, how am I going to find God's favor? Count my days and make them matter.
That's right.
I can't ask for the favor and blessing of God when I'm squandering my days away sinfully or selfishly in my own patterns and my own ways. So God, give us favor. And then once you give us favor, establish our work, but don't just establish Moses' work, establish Israel's work, establish our work, establish Genesis' work, establish the podcaster's work, establish the churches we're connected with, but make them long-lasting and significant.
Man, wow.
For generations and generations to come.
Let's go.
That's how you get a heart of wisdom.
I love that, man. I love that. Together we can do together.
But none of us can do
We
alone.
do alone. That's so powerful. So when we pray that, establish the work of our hands, you are surrendering the need to control outcomes and asking God to weave your obedience into his story, which is what we want. We want his story over our lives, his hand over our lives, man. That's good stuff. I want to leave you with some things that you can take with you here if you're listening with us, that you can apply for your life this week. Don't forget, too, I'm going to pop it up here for you guys, but we're going to have a discussion guides are going to be available for you guys for download. Every podcast that we come out with, we're going to have available discussion guides for you. You can scan the QR code there or check us out on all of our social media accounts. The link tree will be available there for you to click on. But check that out. Let that be a part of your rhythm and what you do. But I want to leave you with this here this week. 4 invitations. Invitation number 1, return home. Let God be the dwelling place of your life. So every morning this week, just say, Lord, be my dwelling place. Establish yourself within my life before I get started with anything. Let that be your prayer every morning this week. Second invitation, face your limits. Ask God to teach you to number your days. Ask God, as Moses prayed, teach us to number our days. Maybe that means saying no to some things so you can say yes to what actually matters in your life. The third invitation is this: bring sin into the light. Whatever is exposed, we will bring freedom to your life. And so let Psalms 90, the language behind that regarding that secret sin that Moses talks about in verse 7, guide you into specific repentance and trusting in Christ and God's steadfast love in your life. Bring that to the forefront so that God can begin to use you. And then the fourth invitation is offer your work. Offer yourself, the work of your hands as a parent, right? As a student, as a grandparent. What can I do to make the work of my hands, to maximize that, Lord? How can you use the work of my hands to study, to serve, to rest, to pray, right? Let that this week take something that is ordinary and make it extraordinary, right? Something that is ordinary with my hands, you make it great in your hands. And so let that be the 4 invitations this week that allow you to establish a good rhythm this week. And again, read Psalms 90 throughout the week and just let that be the heartbeat of what you do this week.
Let me just punch this in at the end. In all of Psalm 90, Moses never prays for longevity of life. That's not the request. It's never mentioned.
Wow.
He just prays that every day is significantly lived for him.
Wow.
That's the wisdom he's seeking. And for many of us, that significance starts in the most important places.
Wow.
And as we know, and as we would encourage, husbands, make sure you make a significant impact in your wife's life.
Let's go.
Wives, make sure you make a significant impact in your husband's life. Parents, make sure you make a significant impact in your kid's life. Adult kids, pick up the phone and call mom and dad to continue to make a significant impact in their life.
So true, bro.
Grab your closest friend and take them to lunch or coffee to continue to make a significant impact in their life. We will receive this in our head we will try to figure out how to put it in our hands. And the closest and best place you can put this is in your home first. I shared yesterday, and I'll close on this. Funeral director told someone, or a doctor, that the greatest regret people have before they pass, that he has heard, is they work too long and too hard. So making your days matter doesn't mean working longer and harder for one day. Making your days matter means maximizing them for significance in the most important places. Wow. That might mean you don't work so long and so hard because you put significance in the wrong thing. That doesn't mean don't work hard and don't work long when it's needed. But at the same time, don't sacrifice the significant things for something that may never arrive. Wow. Count today and today alone as what matters.
Man, let's go. Period. Mic drop. That's beautiful, man. Man, we're so glad. We're thankful for you guys joining us here today. Thank you for all of our new followers and those that are joining us for the first time here at the Post Sunday Podcast. Listen, you've joined us for the first time. You're family now. Like, you are family. And so feel free to email us at postsundaypodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, DM us. We can find us on Instagram, TikTok, X. Send us a DM. We would love to be able to connect with you and just help you out in whatever way, wherever season you are in your faith journey. But we love you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of us and the Psalms this year. This is episode 5. And for those that are live with us, we appreciate you guys. And those that are going to be listening on demand, we greatly appreciate you guys being a part of, letting us be a part of your story and your journey in your faith, wherever you are in that. So we love you. We can't wait to be with you guys here next week for episode 6. Until then, though, grace and peace.